Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video, I've gotten an idea. And not just one idea, I've got quite a lot of them. And I've written them out on Hypixel, SkyBlock, Wikipedia's Sandbox. And I'll be presenting them. You can read them for yourself if you prefer it that way. However, you can watch this video, which will have some visual clues, some extra commentary on those ideas. So, with some more ado, let's get some background. If you've ever seen me on forums, you might have noticed 3 broken image links, a link to my Skycrypt, or a very hard not to notice link to a suggestion. This suggestion was in fact a compilation of every single idea that I liked, that I have created at that point, which was January the 1st, 2023. And this contained a lot of stuff. 6,384 words is in fact pretty large. However, with forums there's not a lot of formatting I had to do. I have to have a give command that would give me those items, which would make it very complicated to edit those mistakes if they were to appear. And if I wanted to make a table, it was a nightmare. But Hypixel's SkyBlock Wikipedia, however, offers some great alternatives. I can create items with custom sprites and descriptions easily. I can edit them whenever I want. However, it's taken quite a while because it is large and it takes a while to load, and the tables are just amazing. You can't deny that. You also have links to items that already exist that you can click if you forgot what they are like, and by me using more colors, it's easier to read. But you don't have to read it, you can continue watching this video. This is certainly going to be a very long video because everything you've seen up till this point took like an hour and a half, so that it's going to certainly take away my weekend and, well, rest of the month. And this video also has a lot of suggestions, so I will be creating timestamps so you can skip ahead to the parts you'll make, because I imagine that everyone will be amused by, I don't know, cosmetic changes, which I will be starting off with. Great idea. Unfortunately, YouTube timestamps are 2-dimensional, and therefore a diagram will be required for you to understand what's going on, what belongs where, and I'll be creating it at the end, because I'll be making timestamps. If you're however reading the Sandbox version, there's a table of contents which has this nice hieroglyphy in it, and it's amazing, really. It's probably the best tool to making suggestions, and if I do this again, I'll definitely be using that. Which I might not do because this took dozens of hours that I could be spending on something else, so yeah, without any further ado, let's do that. Last thing I should mention is that if you liked any of these ideas, then we would be very appreciated if you shared them. Specifically, I mean the forum version of this, because on forums, admins might actually see this post, and I would very much be happy if any of these would get in the game. So if you like this idea, go to the forums version and hit the upvote button on the right side of the suggestion. Perhaps give it some criticism in the replies, because that will make it pop up in newer threads. However, make sure that the post is not old. It will give you a warning, because that would be against the rules. I should also mention that not every single idea got into the video, because otherwise it would be way longer, and because it would take too long, and honestly not all of them are as impressive as the other ones I want to point out. So the first idea I will be writing here is that if you look into bestiary, you can see drop changes of all drops. And if you look in RNG meter for dungeons, you can see the base drop chance of a drop and the drop chance with the bonus you get from RNG meter. I think this exact feature should be implemented into the bestiary as well, and it would account for your magic find, looting, luck, and all other things that increase drop chances. Another idea I have is that you should be able to put bow runes on items that are throwable, such as Tribal Sphere, Bouquet of Lass, and Flower of Truth, or Boomerang, because, I mean, why couldn't you? It's the same principle. Under runes related thing, I think that if you kill a boss with an item that has a weapons rune on it, which makes an effect when a mob dies, I think this effect should be stronger if the defeated mob is some sort of boss, such as Ender Dragon or the bosses on Crimson Isle. When you look at your SkyBlock level, you might notice that there are these dark grey brackets that you cannot customize at all. I think there should be customizable. There are many ways to approach this. They can either be rewards for warriors, milestones, you could be purchasing them, it could be some achievement that you can unlock, or it could be based on the profile you're playing on. Another thing related to SkyBlock levels, there are many ways to get SkyBlock XP, and I think these should be split between tasks that are done by all co-op members and the tasks that every player has to do for themselves. So for example, minions collections or bank upgrades are the same for the whole co-op, while Slayer's skills and similar things are for a singular person. One more thing towards SkyBlock levels. So you get special colors. All of them say that you have unlocked them, but you can't choose which one you're using. And there's no reason for it to be like this. Bulkhead Crest, Dante Talisman, Dante Ring, and Potato Talisman should all be special instead of being common, because they are event items, so it doesn't fit for them to just be common. Last cosmetic idea that is not a new item is that when you have an ultimate skin applied to an item, you can open a menu to choose which particular sprite you want to use. This is a pretty good reason to implement a feature where you can apply multiple skins to the same item and be able to choose between them, as well as the original sprite of an item. Firstly, we have Precursor Eye, an item that when worn can shoot a laser wherever you look. Then we have Summoning Eye, an item that is literally an eye that could very much be used as a skin for Precursor Eye, and it would change the sprite of the helmet as well as the shot particles to something black or purple or perhaps both. Another idea is to use the sprite of Judgment Core and the beam particles of the Salvation ability, which looks like this, which is ever so slightly different. Another idea I have is a dye, but not really. Imagine a polish for Divana armor, which would be diamond. In housing, you have these items which you can place on your island, which can link to your social media platforms. I think Reddit should be put in those, because some famous people are in fact Redditors, or at least were, and I think these items should also be implemented in SkyBlock, not just be in housing. All of these items can be easily purchasable from Amelia, because she sells all other items that come from social skill and are useful for visitors on your island. In Bingo Store, you can purchase a collection display which can display your contributions in a single collection. However, there's not a display for anything else, and there should definitely be a display for skills and perhaps bestiary. Another category of ideas I have are achievements, namely this fun. My disappointment is immeasurable would be for trying to build an Aether portal. Another achievement could be Gifted Horse, which would be obtained from selling any horse pet to George the Pet Collector. And last achievement I have that is not related to new features would be for collecting emblems, because there's quite a lot of emblems and there's no reason to collect emblems apart from bragging. Another idea is that there should be more rankings implemented in SkyBlock. If you look in skills, you can see how far you are in every skill. You can also see it in collection if you've done enough contributions. However, this is pretty much it, and there's a lot of stuff that there should be rankings for. Namely commission milestones, there's no way to see how good you are compared to other people. Same for general bestiary milestone. You can see individual ones for particular mob, but nothing else. Another thing that doesn't work very well would be some emblems, particularly Golden Helix emblem shows how much Heart of the Mountain experience you have, and is unlocked at Heart of the Mountain tier 7. Unfortunately, you cannot get any more Heart of the Mountain XP than the ones you need for HOTM 7, and that means that if you hover over this emblem, it will show the same XP for everyone. Alternatively, it could show how much powder you have or your commissions. There should be also some new emblems, namely emblems for bestiary milestones, playtime, secrets and dungeons, the number of completed collections. There could also be one specifically for a collection that you have one emblem and you would choose which collection it would display, similarly to how the collection display works. There could also be emblems for pet score, the acquired bingo rank, emblem showing off the fact that someone has obtained a creative mind or a game breaker. If you've ever seen a staff member in SkyBlock, you might have seen that they have a special emblem that doesn't appear anywhere in the SkyBlock menu because it's a hidden one. Another emblem that doesn't work as well as it should is the Rift emblem, because it just says Rift time of 8 minutes, which is base. It doesn't consider what you have, which is unfortunate. It could either show your real Rift time, or it could show the lifetime amount of mounts you have collected. Another thing regarding emblems is that the emblems for skills that do not have level 60 should be obtainable once you have enough XP to get it to level 60. I've suggested quite a lot of emblems, so I will also provide some symbols that can be used, which you can see on this screenshot. Feel free to pause. Last idea that I consider cosmetic, because there's a very thin line between cosmetic and QoL, is the Sandbox Profile. I think that there should be a profile where players can do whatever they want. They wouldn't be allowed to trade, they would have a private island on which they can do stuff like testing minions. They would be able to work together with other people on Sandbox Profiles for things like dungeons, dragons, or Kudra. I have no problem with this profile being clocked behind, say, SkyBlock gems or Hypixel gold, because stuff like that isn't necessary for the game, and however, if it will be implemented, the developers might as well get some money for their efforts of creating it. And so people won't abuse it to like the server by having overpowered items and such. I think this would be good because some people need to be testing some stuff to make some calculations, because I think that would be healthy for the community to know how stuff works, so they can share strategies or optimized setups for stuff, as well as people will stop asking about adding every single feature to Centauri, because Centauri is intended for testing future updates, and the NPC is not always available. And now, QoL Ideas, which are again solids, larger than the cosmetic ones. As I mentioned already, there's a thin line between them, so some of these might look like cosmetics, but I don't know. There should be an option to filter creases by runs where player has only opened 0 or 1 chest, because otherwise you have to click in every single one of those chests to check if you have opened something and if there's something worth opening. Another dungeon related feature is that all players should be stopped from spirit leaping to a player that's inside the Icefell puzzle. You can only guess how I thought of that idea. There is already a pet rule for when various bosses spawn, however there's only one for the whole of F7/M7, so I propose that there's a special pet rule for each phase of the fight. When Maxor spawns, when Storm spawns, when Goldor spawns, when Necron spawns, and when Cayman spawns. I think there should be an option to put Cow X and other animal access from Jig as a minion upgrade for the minion, increasing their efficiency by either 50% or straight up double, same as the X itself. However, I think this should only affect the base items and not the bonus items that you get from special items like Corrupt Soil, because that would just be overpowered. When digging up treasure during the Mythological event, I think that after digging up treasure, you can just continue the chain instead of having to click the same block once again, similar to how it automatically completes itself after you hit the 4th burrow in a chain. The Phoenix Pet's Magic Bird and Eternal Coins abilities should, in my opinion, work even when the pet is not summoned, and to the Eternal Coins there should also be an ability about potion effects. Since God Potion no longer is deleted on death, I do not see a problem with this. The Infinity Quiver enchantment, in my opinion, should have 100% chance not to consume flint arrows. Bpet should probably give some fortune specifically towards flowers, so that Iron Man people who want to max the flower minion can grind it out. This fortune should probably be in its hundreds to be very effective. Unfortunately, currently flowers are not affected by any sort of fortune, and since bees, work with the reproduction system of flowers, this makes sense as a feature. I've said it before and I will say it again, I think there should be an option to craft Hot to the Book stack by using 30 pieces of paper, if it lets me pick it up, and enchanted baked potatoes. Attribute shards should be added to Bazaar. When having souls in a necromancer item, I think there should be an option to switch them up somehow. When using co-op salvage command, I think there should be an option for the items to go directly from the player's storage to your own, because if they have, let's say, full potion bag, it would be very annoying to get it to some chests or sell them when they can directly go to your own potion bag, and what doesn't fit would go then into stash. These 5 stats that appear in the tab menu should be customizable, because not all of them are useful in all situations, and I think that being able to choose from them would be very useful and very nice feature that many players would be able to appreciate. The fireproof ability of Magma Lord armor should work against heat in magma fields. Mithril Beacon doesn't boost minions when the player is offline, and when you're offline you also don't get the stats that this thing grants, so there's no reason for the fuel to be consumed when offline as well. There are 2 options to approach this. Either make the beacon work on minions while offline, or make the fuel not be consumed when offline, because it shouldn't be consumed when it doesn't actually do anything. I don't care which way it goes, but that's something that doesn't really make a lot of sense. There should be an option for people to permanently lock themselves from deleting their profiles. User Rapid Who on forums proposed that there would instead be a confirmation period, so that once you delete your profile, you will have to come back and confirm it in 24 hours or perhaps a week. The reason for this is that some people just don't plan to ever stop playing SkyBlock, so they should just, secure their profile by preventing themselves from doing it. Glowing mushrooms should be affected by mushroom fortune and farming fortune, because Enderman people need to get tonics, and I imagine walking here with the best tool giving you +1 mushrooms is going to get very old very fast. Armor sets reforged to undead reforged from the premium flesh should be somehow affected by the zombie pet's ability that increases all stats on undead armor sets, because otherwise the reforged will have always been useless. Some potions should be added to Bazaar, namely Mush Glowy Tonic, Mining Pumpkin, Dungeon Potions, and some others. Opal Gemstone should be applicable into the defensive slot of items. Currently it isn't, so if you want to apply it to an item, it either needs to have Opal slot or a universal one, which is kind of boring. Magma Cube Boss Ash Fang and Barbarian Duke X should drop burning keys instead of hot and basic ones. Additionally, the Inferno Demon Lord boss fight can also drop keys, which can vary depending on the Slayer's tier. Reduce the cooldown of Ender Bow. This item shoots an Ender Pearl and teleports you wherever it lands, which is a very useful ability for mobility in early game. I used it myself in 2019, however, why does it have cooldown of 45 seconds? Shooting an Ender Pearl is not exactly an impressive ability. And if you're wondering about the damage this ability is supposed to deal, that's capped at 1000 damage, and it doesn't even do 10% it says it does. The powder event should also affect the amount of essence you are getting, because for max players, getting more powder is just useless, and getting extra essence is always nice since you can sell it or use it on items. I think that Token of the Mountain should be added somewhere within the Diamond Essence, as well as the Gold Essence shop, because it would kind of fit there, and getting more Token of the Mountains is always nice. All Deep Caverns mobs should drop their respective ores, and not just the redstone pigment. The sell price of Flaming Sword should be increased from 20 to 2000 to fit more with other items, because 20 is really a joke. Mythor Golem's bonus to powder and Scatter's bonus to gemstone powder should both work when the pet is not summoned, or at least they should both work if you have one of these two pets equipped. Scatter spawns should be affected by the Enderman Slayer perk that increases the rare drop chance, as well as it should be affected by Luck of the Cave. I think there should be a feature in Harp similar to the RNG meter, that if you get some amount of percentage, it would add up to a specific number, and once you gotten the number, it will count as if you have completed the song. Similar feature can be added to Dojo, with you getting some points to these milestones depending on the score you've gotten. So if you get F, you can get something like 0, D would give 1, C 3, B 5, A 10, and S would give 20. So that you can work towards this milestone without having to compete with yourself, which can perhaps be even considered unhealthy. These points, however, should not count to this leaderboard, which, definitely is legal and doable after all the bug fixes. Songs in Harp that give 1 intelligence should give 1 mana regen instead. It's not overpowered, but it's at least useful, and might be an extra motivation to actually do these, because otherwise there's just some SkyBlock XP, and that's just not very, motivating. And last idea regarding laggy features, I think there should be a personal Dojo similarly to how there is personal Harp, which could just be a placeable island that you unlock after getting specific reputation on Crimson Isle. Now, some bingo ideas. Considering that there isn't a bingo event going on, it will be quite difficult to provide some visual stimulus for you all to enjoy while I'm talking. I think that Elixir's contact should be available to up bingo phone every bingo, not just the special ones. I think that the requirement for Power Stones and Reforged Stones should be removed for bingo players, because Refined Reforged from Refined Ember is useful, but getting Mining 25 is not realistic, and if someone does that, they don't need Refined Mineral anymore. Auto Slayer should be unlocked automatically for all bingo players, because the Slayer community goals are pretty common, and this would certainly help grinding them. Another thing is that I think bingo players should gain access to Hexadarium, which is normally unlocked through Museum, which is unfortunately disabled for bingo players. Another thing that's going to be added would be more items into the bingo store. I proposed that there would be some specific items that you can buy 4 bingo points, and you will get them at the start of every bingo to help you start faster. Those items can include stuff like ender pearls or some collection heat start or some coins. Another thing that could be added is the co-op bingo, which was mentioned in the first patch notes of bingo, and it was never talked about again, and there are many people who would enjoy it. I think the commands from booster cookies should be available to bingo players, such as /show, /accessory bag, /fishing bag, /quiver, and all of that. There's one more thing regarding bingo I want to mention, because it happened again multiple months in a row. Last time I suggested this, it happened 3 times in a row, and it was very annoying. Now it's the 2nd month, and the thing in question is that you have a goal for 100,000 of a specific wood collection as a bingo goal. Now, this goal is perfectly achievable. Minions do the job. But I propose that instead of the collection being a specific wood collection, you would be able to either collect 100,000 wood, regardless of the type, or 100,000 wood of the same type, so that players can spread around the park island and grind all the wood they want. Some people would grind dark oak, some people would grind acacia, and those are pretty much the only woods that were easy to grind. Ever since the rework of stars in April 2022, I think that all items should be starable, including Warden Helmet, Daedalus Axe, and Aspect of the End/Void. All of these and more should be starable using the essence that's related to these items. So for example, for these 3 it would be Undead, Gold, and Dragon. There's quite a lot of stats that do not have themselves their own enrichment, even though they could. Namely Pet Luck, Mining Speed, Mining Fortune, Farming Fortune, specific Wisdom stat, not all of Wisdom stats, but just a specific one, which would technically fill this menu, but there can be multiple pages. Ability damage, health regen, and fishing speed. Additionally, the stats I have listed that are not in the beacon should be added there, as well as ferocity, which is not here for some reason. I think there should be more stats, namely stuff like experience wisdom, which would track all sorts of bonuses to your experience, such as the ones you get from enchanting levels, experience enchantment, experience attributes, and shimmering light armor. Additionally, I think there should be a pet wisdom, which would track your bonuses to pet XP from taming levels, Beastmaster crest, and pet items. Another stat that would track something that you get from multiple items, which are hard to keep track of, would be damage reduction, which would be called tenacity, as well as damage boost, which could be called wrath or offense. Neither of these stats should be boosted by Ender Dragon, Legion, or stuff like that. And now that I have run out of ideas that can somehow be interpreted in-game, I can finally go to the suggestion and show custom items. Starting off with Mythic Spirit Pet, which could be a separate item, could be obtained from Master Mode Floor 4. The 4th ability makes the people in dungeons be able to collect secrets and perhaps puzzles. However, I think that there should be an alive person to claim the chest, so that 3 to 4 dead people do not become a meta when doing dungeons. Another item is Master Rock, which is a power stone which gives less strength and critical damage than Mandrea 4 times, but gives you weapon damage, which is scaled with your magical power. As a unique power bonus, it gives combat wisdom. This item can be obtained either from Bestiary Milestone or as a rare drop from all mobs, similarly to Phoenix Pet. Another idea is Questmaster in SkyBlock. Questmaster is an NPC present with every minigame across Hypixel, however SkyBlock doesn't have one. Probably because the minigame is not yet in 1.0 version. However, I think it should be implemented either way, because it has existed for 4 years now. I think there should be a massive list of possible quests, from which there will be several randomly chosen for Questmaster to be giving out to players, similar to how the bingo events work. The rewards could include coins, essence, bits, gift of learning, or similarly functioning item, or stuff like that. Another item is Kudra Keychain, which is just a sack for Kudra keys. I think this is a very good QoL item. It could be obtained from Kudra boss collection at, for example, 100 kills. And when opening chests in Kudra, I think you should be able to use the keys that you have in this sack stored. Another item is Bait Swapper, for which there is no reason for it not to exist yet. It functions exactly as Arrow Swapper, but for bait. It can be purchasable from Marine or Fish Merchant, and yeah, this is something many people would appreciate. Another idea of mine is that Wizard NPC could be a vendor. Previously it was part of Major Mayor suggestion, which I posted about 2 years ago. However, Berry is no longer a candidate, so this can be added without any of the shenanigans of that particular suggestion, which I will get to later. My idea was that Wizard would become a vendor and sell various mage-related items. Lore-wise, reason for that could be that he needs some coins for Rift Endeavors, and yeah, more items would become unlocked with more intelligence you have. So, starting off with Crystal Ball at 3000 intelligence for 10 million coins, which is a Reforged Stone for Sword or a Wand, giving more intelligence than the Heroic Reforge, as well as being the only Reforge that gives Magic Find. It also grants the magical bonus, which increases the swing range of the Mage Staff ability in dungeons, as well as give you Magic Find based on the damage you've dealt. Second item sold by a wizard would be Toy Stick, which converts all your mana to overflow mana and sets your maximum mana to 0, but grants you 25 ability damage. This means that if you want to get more mana that you already have, you will need to use Soul Flow, which is expensive, but it will be stronger. This could result in some interesting stats for mages. This ability lasts as long as you want and can be toggled off any time, however has a cooldown of 1 minute. This would cost 25 million coins and require 4000 intelligence. Third item is Wand of Insight, which would reduce the mana cost of you and teammates by 10% for 20 seconds with 1 minute cooldown, which would be purchasable with 5000 intelligence for 50 million coins. And last item from Wizard would be God's Wrath, which is a power stone reducing intelligence but giving ability damage and giving 50 mana regen as unique power bonus. This power stone would require 6000 intelligence and cost 200 million coins and would give you all the power stones you need to give the item to Maxwell. Okay, so now the possibly the largest part of this suggestion, Major Mayor Updates, which effectively is an idea that when you elect specific mayors, it would add an update depending on what the mayor does. The idea definitely did not come from the 16-year-old me thinking the words major and mayor are cool together when written. Anyhow, starting with Diana Mayor, which would add Egyptian mythological ritual. When Mythological event was released back in 2020 or something like that, it was phenomenal. It was a new combat thing you can grind it next to Slayers and dungeons. However, it's getting a bit repetitive, and if you're an Enderman player trying to get Chimera enchantment, you'll probably get sick of all the Inquisitors you will be seeing. So, I propose another alternative event to this one. They can either switch between, or whenever Diana is elected, she would say which event will be happening, which technically increases the amount of grinding you have to do to max the event. However, it brings some variety to this grinding, so I think it's pretty good. In this update I propose specific mobs and their drops and quite a lot of unique items that are related to each other, unlike all the new items I've suggested before. So, without any further ado, let's get to that. Apart from suggesting Egyptian mythological event, I also propose some changes to the current event, namely replacing Gaia Construct with Medusa. Medusa is a creature from Greek mythology which is known for petrifying people she looks at. So I propose that Medusa will have an ability that will stun the summoner and all other players who attack her for 2 seconds, making them unable to move or attack, while she can still attack them, which is still annoying, but way better than Gaia Construct just randomly dealing massive damage. And second feature that I propose that is not related to Egyptian ritual would be adding some extra features to Archaeologist. Archaeology is such a cool concept. You explore some old relics and learn about the past of something, and you have Archaeology NPC located in Spider's Den next to the skull of a dragon general, Chazom, who was damaged by the dragon Jitar, who attacked the SkyBlock world, which separated the SkyBlock into islands that we know today. That is extremely cool, so this NPC is bound to have some interesting quests, isn't he? No, what you have to do for Archaeologist is run around the island and collect these blocks. That is so incredibly boring. Taking inspiration from Hollow Knight, which has itself an NPC called Relic Seeker Lem. Relic Seeker Lem can be used to donate some items you can collect throughout Hello Nest, and you will get coins for them, and you will also get some lore for them. You will get more lore, more items you donate. That is a brilliant feature that can be added here that's related to archaeology. NPC doesn't need to specifically give you coins. You can also get perhaps SkyBlock XP, some tiered accessory, or perhaps temporary magic find. I definitely think that you should be able to donate some items from the Mythological ritual that you no longer need to Archaeologist, because otherwise, as user GR4TTE on Reddit suggested, you would get quite a lot of items that are going to stop being useful very quickly. Anyhow, I think that you should be able to donate the items from Mythological Ritual to this NPC to get lore and extra reward. So to get to the new items, I propose Sphinx Pet, which would be a drop from one of those mobs. Sphinx Pet would give good stats for combat against mythological creatures, however not give magic find like Griffin does. I propose that both Griffin and Sphinx Pet could be useful in both Egyptian and Greek mythological event, which is the first ability of this pet. Second ability increases the amount of token drops you get. By token drops, I mean Dragon Fragment, Soul String, token drops from Slayers, Ancient Claw, Ancient Sand, which I will talk about later, and most other items you get multiple of. Third ability is Sandstorm, which casts Sandstorm around the user when the pet is equipped, reducing the speed of mobs in that radius by 40% and giving them 5% chance to miss their attacks. I think the ability to miss their attacks is pretty creative thing that is not found a lot in SkyBlock. You have Dodge Potion and Giraffe Pet, but I believe that is it. Fourth ability is Scratch, which makes your melee attacks affect mobs, making them deal more damage and make them move slower. First creature for the event I propose would be a mummy, which would be unequal for minus hunter with those stats and drop rates. I don't think it needs to have any special abilities similar to Middle Hunter, so I'll just move on to second creature I propose was originally something else, which I don't think I can say on YouTube, so I will not. I think Priest would have an orb that would follow the player and attack them, similar to the skulls of Mage Outlaw. However, unlike the skulls of Mage Outlaw, they cannot be killed. They have these drops, including Enchanted Lapis, as an equivalent to Enchanted Gold of the Greek mythological creatures. The idea of using Enchanted Lapis was proposed to me by a friend of mine, ATAP. Third creature is Pharaoh's Guard, equivalent to Minotaur. My idea of them is that they would be 3, 4 or 6 mobs depending on the pet's rarity, which would share HP. Whenever each of them would be hit, they would all take the damage and also hit the player in sync. They all have drops, which leads to lower drop rates. Since they all die at the same time, this means that you can either get very lucky or very unlucky. TLDR is that their RNG would roll multiple times, and when you get to legendary rarity, you will get a lot more drops than you normally. Another idea is Serpapart, proposed by a friend of mine, Catsper Snow. Serpapart is a creature in Egyptian mythology, which is the combination of serpent and geopard. It would be an equivalent of Gaia Construct and inflict venom when attacking, which would halve players' vitality, disabling their health regen and making them lose 3% of their max health per second until this Serpapart dies. It would have these drops, nothing very special. Another creature is Sand Elemental, which is a collaborative effort of me and my friend Palace. Sand Elemental would be an equivalent of Minos Champion. Sand Elemental could look like a player character or like a place, and it would cast Sandstorm similar to the Sphinx Pet, affecting all players in radius, reducing their speed and attack speed as well as dealing damage. Apart from getting the same drops as all the other creatures, it also has a chance to drop Epic Sphinx Pet, which can then be upgraded at Cat to Legendary. And last creature is Pharaoh, which is an equivalent of Minos Inquisitor, which has a lot higher stats, but unlike Inquisitor does not reduce players' stats, hence they are stronger. Upon hitting the player, they have 33% chance to summon Mummy, but the Mummy will not drop any drops. They have swing range and higher attack speed, making them quite a formidable enemy. And they have more drops than anyone else. Adding to the original Chunk of Sarcophagus, Piece of Ankh, Eye of Horus, they also have Sphinx Pet, Anubis' Saber, Anubis' Charm, Cleopatra's Cobra, and Chimera 1. Those are just ideas. I'm not against any of them being discarded or somewhat edited, because I have very little experience with this. Now let's get to the items. I propose that Ancient Sand could be used as a replacement when crafting Beastmaster Crest and Zok Anvil. However, all other items that require Ancient Claw will still require specifically Ancient Claw. So first item is Ancient Sand, drops from all of these creatures and is used in recipes as material. The sprite is taken from Housing's Grain of Sand. I decided to use Hypixel's sprite as much as possible because they already should own the rights to use those images, therefore it shouldn't be any sort of problem. Second item we'll talk about is Piece of Ankh, which rarely drops from most of these creatures, and it's used in the first custom recipe, the Ankh Charm, requiring 5 pieces of enchanted ancient sand and 4 pieces of Ankh, resulting in an accessory giving 25 health regen and having epic rarity. I propose a lot more accessories throughout this video because after the Crimson Isle release and the rework of magical power, I think that they can just add as many accessories as they want, because there's no reason not to, since they are not as OP as they were before. Another item is Piece of Sarcophagus, a legendary accessory giving 5 magic vine crafted from 5 chunks of sarcophagus and 8 pieces of enchanted ancient sand. Another item is Eye of Horus, which is a drop and it's not in fact crafted. It's an pet item which reduces the mana cost of healing items by 50% or 25% on deployables. Another item is Anubis' Charm, which allows the wearer to store summon additional soul in their necromancy weapons. Another item would be Cleopatra's Cobra, which would be an item similar to Soul Whip, except while Soul Whip shoots in a curved trajectory, Cleopatra's Cobra would shoot in a straight line, inflicting venom on all struck enemies. Another item is Anubis' Saber, which is another necromancy item, having 400 weapon damage, 100 strength, 25 speed, 150 intelligence, and 4 souls of necromancy capacity. And yes, I had to rewrite the entire ability Raise Soul for this suggestion. Another item is the Mummy Armor, crafted from a total of 72 pieces of Mummy's Cloth, which is one of the fancier crafting recipes I have created. Each of these pieces would give 40 strength and quite a lot of health and defense, and as a piece bonus you would also take less damage from all mythological creatures by 5% per piece, and additional 10% from the set bonus, adding to 30%. Another part of the set bonus is that you will get 20 extra magic find and boost the power of all other mythological items. List of the boosts is below. This armor set could be soulbound, but doesn't necessarily have to be, because it was pointed out to me that it's OP, so it's better for people to grind for it rather than just buy it and be easily able to do a mythological event. Now we'll get to the list of bonuses. Those things are very OP because it requires full set of the Mummy Wrappings armor. Pets are omitted from gaining a bonus, but all other items are not. And while I could go one by one through every single one of those upgrades, that would be very long, so we can pause the video and read them. I am pretty positive there's nothing wrong about them. So, second part of the major Maya updates is Aatrox, which would add tier 5 Tarantula and tier 5 Sven. I've got bad news for all of you. It's been almost 3 years since the release of Atoned Horror, the 5th tier of Zombie Slayer. 3 years, and Tarantula and Sven tier 5 are nowhere to be seen. So I aim to change that today, by adding unique abilities to both of them that would be perhaps annoying to fight, which was very much my intention. I also propose some other changes to the current Slayers to match what happened with Revenant after their release. Namely that tier 4 Tarantula and Sven should drop respectively Bane of Arthropods and Critical 7 books, and following 2 recipes should be introduced. First of them is Compressed Mosquito, which is just a ripoff of Reaper Orb, but it gives critical damage instead of strength. Another item is the Flux Sphere, which doubles all stats gained from power orbs and increasing their duration and range. By stats I specifically mean stats, not the mana and health recovery, so only the strength, vitality, mending, and things from Jalapeno book. While Compressed Mosquito and Reaper Orb are crafted from 8 RNG drops, since Overflux Capacitor is rarer than either of these two, I have only chosen for them to be crafted using 6 of them like so. The name of Tarantula Bloodfather tier 5 that was proposed by user. This was proposed by the user underscore the Ender Dragon, who has changed their username while I was working on this. Is Tarantula Godfather. This follows the naming system used in Zombie Slayer, where first 4 tiers were called Revenant Horror and 5th one is called Atoned Horror. In Spider Slayer, the first 4 are Tarantula Bloodfather, while the 5th one would be Tarantula Godfather. Proposed stats are that it would have 50 million health, 2000 damage. Tier 5 Revenant has 6.6 times the health of tier 4 and a very damaging ability. I chose a different approach, with having a lot more health, since a lot more ways to deal damage has been added since their own release, as well as a very annoying ability. which I will get to straight away. I sounded very tired reading this, so I decided to say it once again. So the first ability of the Slayer would be that the boss itself and all spiders within 25 block radius would be immune to all non-melee damage, same as Arachne. This immunity would also include Fire Spec, Venomous, Cleave, Thunderlord, Ferocity, and Crimson Armor abilities. Second ability would be Alpha Spider, which would make all affected spider by the first abilities, so 25 block radius, targeted player with ranged attacks dealing same damage as the boss. Since the boss deals 2000 damage, that's bound to be rather deadly. Affected spiders cannot be corrupted, and if they were corrupted, their corruption is removed, and runic mobs, which also deal more damage, are immune to this effect. Third ability is Spider Instinct, which makes the player occasionally throw a cobweb, which reduces the player's speed to 50, not by 50, and their attack speed to 0, and their swing range to 1. Last ability is Venom, which nullifies any player's healing, which means that using Slayer armor is highly encouraged. Now we can get to drop rates. I've pretty much copied the drop rates of Atoned Horde, but instead of making Foul Flesh less common and make it drop more of it, I made it more common and make the drop amount the same. I also added 2 new drops, the Scorpion Scale, equivalent of Shard of the Shredded, and Vial with Arachne's Venom, equivalent of Warden Heart. Now let's get to the upgrade of Tarantula Armor. A requirement for this set to be crafted would be Spider Slayer level 7, and it would be very similar to the Reaper Armor, except that this would be very tanky set, offering no strength or critical damage whatsoever, but giving a lot of defense, speed, and intelligence. Its full set bonus Ox to Dexterity would make the wearer inflict venom, and every 4th strike dealing double damage, same as the Tarantula Armor does now, but also deal 200% damage to spiders and 1% to all other mobs, similarly to what the Reaper Armor does. Same as Reaper Armor, it has another full set bonus, which is an ability. This ability would convert half of your mana into defense for 30 seconds, with 45-second cooldown. And it's also followed by Spider Bulwark. I proposed for this set to be very tanky due to the boss's abilities. If the set is too tanky, I propose making the boss stronger rather than this set less tanky, because that would encourage players to wear the set instead of wearing Necron or Crimson for literally everything you can find in SkyBlock. The extra bonuses of various pieces would be slightly better as well, with Scorpion Boots having stronger jump and less mana cost. The Scorpion Helmet's ability would have 50% higher limit, so it would give up to 150 critical damage instead of 100. Tarantula and Scorpion Chestplate ability was changed to not negate any healing reduction, but instead reduce healing reduction to 90%. And since Tarantula leggings didn't have any ability of their own, I had to think of one, and I decided that it would make you able to walk through cobwebs, except the one spawned by the Slayer, which would be only half as strong as it normally is. This set is followed with a defensive gemstone slot, in which you can put ruby, amethyst, or if one of my above suggestions goes through, an opal gemstone as well. The recipe for the armor is very much a copy of the recipe of the Reaper Armor. I'm trying to hide that fact, I just adjusted the materials to be more appropriate. Now, regarding the sword, it's an upgrade to Scorpion Foil called Scorpion Sting, crafted from 4 stacks of Tarantula Silk and 4 pieces of Scorpion Scale. Since the resulting sword is a legendary wooden sword, then, thanks to Wooden Singularity, it can become divine, and therefore there will need to be reforged stats for that particular rarity. It has more damage, deals more damage to spiders, and also provides damage reduction against spiders when held, which the previous one does not. I also completely replaced the ability because the previous one was just boring and I don't think I ever managed to use it successfully, so I instead went with something that was inspired by a fellow wiki editor of mine, the True Shaman, who has suggested something and I then changed it a little bit, as you can see. The freeze ability would work on all mobs, but on some specific mobs it would be less effective. So for some dungeon mini-bosses, mythological creatures, sea creatures, and other similar enemies, they would still be frozen but can still attack, and dungeon bosses are only slowed, they can still attack and still move. And last item related to the Spider Slayer is Arachne's Mask, crafted from Wild with Arachne's Venom, some enchanted fermented spider eyes and enchanted emerald blocks because I didn't want the items to repeat a lot, since Warden Helmet already uses iron blocks. So yeah, this item doesn't give any stats on purpose, but gives an ability that makes you deal more damage based on the amount of critical chance you have over 100 by 2% per critical chance, at the cost of halving your strength. When I suggested it last year, it was pointed out to me that it's too weak to be used, so I made it twice as strong. This item would take priority over Overload. And yeah, I don't think there's much else to be said about this item. Hi, new day, new me. If I sounded tired yesterday, it's because I in fact was. And yeah, so yeah, let's just continue. Sven Packmaster Tier 5. Assuming there isn't any area other than Howling Caves and Ruins being planned that would feature wolves, I think that the amount of XP or their spawn rates should be increased, because otherwise this would take a very long time to spawn. Now, let's get to the naming of this Slayer. I thought of Versven. You know, just like PewDiePie's dog, but werewolf. Instead of the boss being a wolf, it would become a werewolf, being a player character with a special sprite. Right, so I've taken the sprite of werewolf used by Hypixel, and I adjusted the saturation and changed the eye color to create this thing, which could potentially be how the Slayer would look like. Anyhow, the stats for this Slayer would be that it would have 100 million HP, 5000 damage, 502 damage, and 33 ferocity. Make the first mob on Hypixel that would have ferocity. And yes, I intend for this to be very deadly, because otherwise people would use some armor from Crimson Island. It would be just, you know, boring. Regarding the abilities of this Slayer, first would be Tough Skin, which would make it immune to all ranged and magical attacks, so no hype either, and it would also be immune to damage over time effects. It, unlike any mob, would also be immune to non-critical hits, while making players' critical chance 3 times lower, hence Tough Skin ability. It will also be immune to being frozen from all abilities such as Ice Spray, Fire Freeze Wand, as well as Scorpion Sting, seen above. Second ability is an actual ability instead of a perk of sorts, and it would be that it would increase boss's ferocity to 100 temporarily, making it, in fact, do a lot more damage. Third ability is inspired by what Sven Packmaster does with pups, and it would be that where Sven would call for Sven Packmaster Tier 4 at 75%, 50%, and 25% health, with the amount of Packmasters being increased at every quarter. And while Sven Packmaster stops for a while to howl and summon pups, Versven would not. And similarly to Packmaster with pups, Versven would be immune to all damage while Packmasters are alive. Lovely. The drops of the Slayer. Similar to Atoned Horror, it would increase the amount of drops such as Wolf Tooth and Hamster Wheels, and it also introduces 2 new drops. That's Silver Ingot, again equivalent of Shard of the Shredded, and Versven's Fang, which is an equivalent of Warden Heart. You might notice that this thing is called Grizzly Salmon. Which I also didn't know until I noticed that this thing wasn't working, which has apparently been a change added in 0.19.2, so that's useful to know. For these 2 new drops, I did not bother finding a sprite because I thought that an iron ingot and flint would just do fine. So yeah. The armor itself, again, totally removes any defense, but gives you twice as much health as a base stat compared to Mastiff armor. It's titled Armor of Familiar because Mastiff armor is already named after the biggest dog, so I had to think somewhat differently. Instead of having 5 slots for rubies, it would have 5 defensive slots, because above, again, I suggested that Opal would be able to be put into defensive slots, which would be useful against this Slayer, since it does true damage. Regarding the stat bonus, it still gives 50 HP per critical damage, but instead of regaining 2% of yourself whenever hit, it regains 3. It makes you take 25% less damage from wolves as well as werewolves. Your critical damage are only 40% less effective instead of 50. There's also this thing that you deal 200% more damage to wolves and werewolves, but 1% to all other mobs. So people who would previously use Mastiff Armor and Pooch Sword to do high amount of damage can no longer do that against mobs that are not wolves and werewolves. It also introduces a new set bonus, which nullifies your damage taken and dealt for up to 5 seconds, can be toggled off by another Sneak, and has a cooldown of 15 seconds, which is heavily implied by the Skyrim ability of the same name. The Become Ethereal ability should not prevent you from being insta-killed or taking damage from stuff like Trials of Fire, because, you know, that would be pretty OP. It's crafted using refined mithril and golden tooth. I chose mithril because otherwise the materials used to upgrade these items would repeat a lot, and it also matches in color. So, yeah. Now we have an upgraded Mastiff Sword, crafted from 4 stacks of golden tooth, 4 silver ingots, and Pooch Sword. It has 150 damage instead of 120. It does not grant critical damage, but it grants a lot more strength. It gives you less damage based on max health, but it deals double damage to wolves and werewolves, so against those mobs it would be equal effective, assuming that this will be made multiplicative. It also has this ability of always critical hitting. It also comes with an ability that makes all mobs run away from you for 5 seconds with 30-second cooldown. Warden Helmet equivalent again doesn't give any stats, but it makes your ferocity strikes deal 25% of their damage as true damage. And I intend for this to also keep the set bonus of werewolf armor, and there can also be an upgrade for the set added eventually. Next banner that is part of the major mayor thing is QoL. If you're asking why there should be another mining update, because there's already been mining update 1 and mining update 2, the reason for that is very simple. Because both of these updates added their own mining collections, and there's no reason to focus on any others after a certain point in the game, so I instead decided to create some new items into most of the old collections that would motivate people to do them more than they usually need to. So, requiring 1 million cobblestone collection, you have Compactor Core, which is an item that can be enabled with a personal compactor or personal deleter accessories to permanently add 1 slot to them, with each of them being applicable 5 times. It's crafted from 8 enchanted stone bricks, which is currently not the existing item, which would just be enchanted cobblestone block, crafted, you know, just like so. And Compactor Core also needs 8 enchanted redstone blocks. Next item would be a common accessory Miner's Dream, requiring less collection, and 40 pieces of enchanted coal, which would trigger smelting and silk touch correctly when mining minerals. That means you can easily mine iron and gold ore, as well as netherrack and ice with the same tool, and it would give you all the items that you want. Next item I propose would be Neutron Bucket, which is an upgrade to Plasma Bucket, requiring 2 Plasma Buckets, heat core, as well enchanted blocks of coal. This increases minion speed by 40%, which is something that Ever-Burning Flame already does, therefore I propose that Ever-Burning Flame is buffed to at least 50%, and if there are any other items that will be specifically for a specific time of minion, that they would also give 50% speed bonus and be crafted using Plasma Buckets, while you have general buckets that would be upgrading more slowly but be universal. It has Divine Rarity, which looks cool but is questionable because it could be recombobulated, at which point there will be needed a new rarity. In Iron Ingot we have Perfect Hopper with an asterisk because it's not in fact perfect. This item could be placed on your island and affect all minions that are currently working there, and whenever their storage would fill, the items would be sold for the 95% of their NPC sell price and would be collectible in the placed block. In Gold Collection I propose Enchanted Clock, which is another coming soon item that was removed, and I made it a minion upgrade that would make all minion fuels last twice as long in a minion, crafted from enchanted redstone blocks, enchanted gold blocks, and enchanted quartz block. And also another item would be Time Deviation Device, which would make positive potion effects last twice as long. I do not intend for this to work on God Potion and Boost Rookie, but it would work on stuff like Wisp Potion, Mushed Glowy Tonic, and Reheated Gummy Bear, regarding which I also have a suggestion later on. Up next, in Diamond Collection, I got an item called Brilliant, which can be combined with a diamond armor piece to permanently increase its defense by 25. And it would have a secret bonus to give another 25% defense on perfect armor pieces, and another 10 if the item is reforged to perfect, which would add up to 6 defense per absolutely perfect armor piece. By diamond piece, I do not mean Mastiff or Revenant armors, because those armor sets have an upgrade that is not diamond armor anymore. However, I intend for this to work on diamond boss heads. Up next in Obsidian Collection would be an item called Void Shard, which can be combined in an enable of any ability that has a soul flow ability to permanently increase its power. So the duration of all katanas would be increased for 10 seconds, however they would also come with higher mana cost and soul flow cost. I could read all the other upgrades, but you can also pause and read them for yourselves if you're interested in that. Another collection is Endstone, which would have purple brick, which can be combined with an Endstone sword or bow to make them stronger, increasing their rarity to legendary, giving them 100 weapon damage, making their abilities 20% more powerful, and Endstone swords damage reduction cap would be increased from 50% to 66%. And last collection I have would be Ice Collection, where we have Frost Core, which can be used with ice items to permanently increase their abilities. Again, you can stop the video to see those few upgrades. And last Mayor in Major Mayor updates is Bramass, which currently isn't a Mayor, it's just a very useless NPC that's located in Spider's Den that's used to unlock Bestiary. What I propose this Slayer would do would be to motivate players to grind out Bestiary and kill mobs that they usually wouldn't kill. First of its abilities would give 15% chance for a killed mob to count as 2 kills, which would make it roll RNG twice, give you twice as many coins from Scavenger Enchantment, and this chance would be increased to 40% to bosses, so that people spawn more bosses as well, because not a lot of people do bosses nowadays. Another perk would double all stats gained from Bestiary. And the last ability would work similarly to Hypixel Pit's contract system, in which you would have 3 randomly chosen mobs and amount of how many you have to kill, with variety of rewards, and you can choose which one you have to do. This can be repeated as many times as you wish to get more rewards. Those rewards can be combat XP, pet experience, bits, and coins. And yeah, for ease of access, this NPC can be also added to Abiphone contacts so that it can be accessed remotely. I would like to thank Pablis for helping me come up with this mayor. Other thing that could be added with this mayor would be Mythic Grandma Wolf Pet, which is a large wall of text that's somewhat confusing. It can be obtained from a very high bestiary milestones, even 200, and it would have a lot more stats, so that people actually are motivated to equip this pet, because otherwise no one does that unless they are leveling the pet. And it would also buff all the milestones, as well as adding the second stat. I intend for the second stat to only be active when the pet is equipped, while the buff to the first stat in each combo would work regardless if the pet was equipped or not. Another buff to this pet you might notice is that all stacks last 1 additional second. And now we get to the unfinished content part of this suggestion, because I, against all odds, didn't have the time to think all the ideas through as I would have liked. First of those that's very unfinished is an automaton or perhaps precursor pet. The reason I chose to add such pet is because we don't know anything about precursors, but they appear in Dungeons Floor 6. They are mentioned in Rift as a possible upcoming threat, and they also appear in Crystal Hollows. 3 pretty unrelated areas that all somehow deal with this idea, so I'm pretty positive it's going to be an upcoming update. And I propose for this pet to be another level 200 pet, having 2 skills, both mining and combat, giving a lot of stats that are useful for a lot of things. It also gives you +1 block reach, by which I mean both swing range and the ability to reach with your mining tool 1 block farther. Its abilities are very boring. First of them would speed up all machines by 50%, by which I mean Forge, which is not really a machine, and Composer, and any others that might be added in the future. The second ability would make Drill and Pickaxe abilities 30 seconds shorter, which is slightly more useful, but still pretty questionable. And last ability would make Mechanical Accessories stronger, and I unfortunately didn't think of any ways it could make mechanical accessories stronger, or what exactly would mechanical accessories be. So yeah. There's not a lot regarding this pet, but there are more finished ideas coming later. So let's get to those. Another one of those would be Slayer Prestiges, which are not what they sound like. They're more like 10 additional difficulties to all Slayer tiers, which would have more HP, but also give you more Magic Find, Combat Wisdom, and Slayer XP, at the cost that they will be harder. You can choose the Prestige of Slayer you want to do, and you can revert it at any time. When you beat each Slayer Prestige for the first time, you will get 10 SkyBlock XP, adding up to 600 SkyBlock XP across the 6 currently existing Slayers. Didn't think of many abilities that could be used by this, but one of them would be that it would reduce all players' combat stat by 5%, similar to what the Minus Inquisitor is doing, and another thing would be that it would copy players' health regen at 60% efficiency, which means it would heal about 1% of its HP every second, but it will also have more health, more damage, and give you less time to beat it, which would make it harder but doable for some people who are bored by the simplicity of currently existing Slayers. Next idea would be Alchemy 2.0. I think we can all agree that Alchemy is currently a useless skill that could be somehow improved. So I propose that the items that give you some buff for 1 hour would now be referred to as elixirs. This includes Mining Pumpkin, Reheated Gummy Polar Bear, Mushed Glowy Tonic, Wisps Ice Flavored Water Splash Potion, and any others that I'm currently forgetting. I propose that all of these items would have their duration set to 1 hour, which can only be increased by Enchanted Power Treadstone Lamp, which is an item that I will get to later. I propose a new item inside the collection, which would be called Alchemical Flask. This item is used to craft elixirs unlocked in various other collections. The sprite used is just empty thunder bottle and is crafted from 6 pieces of hard glass, and you get 3 whenever crafted. First elixir is carrot juice, which is crafted from 6 enchanted golden carrots and 1 alchemical flask, and it gives you health regen, farming fortune, and 100 HP for 1 hour. Another from Dark Oak Wood collection is crafted from Dark Oak Wood, sugarcane, and magical water bucket, and you get root beer, giving you strength, speed, and foraging wisdom. As you can see, I intended for those to give a variety of stats for that you can perhaps combine to get, better. I do not intend for any of these effects to be included in God Potion, because God Potion is a very boring way to go. However, I do later intend on making these items into mix-ins that can be added to God Potion, but I will get to that. Another item is Seavolker Pheromone, inspired by Droner's Pheromone from Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, because I play that game and I enjoy that game a lot. It's crafted from 15 pieces of enchanted lilybeds, 1 enchanted cooked fish, and again, alchemical flask, and it gives you secret chance, magic find, and fishing wisdom. Another 2 items I came up with make damage over time effects 25% more powerful, and another one gives you 25 damage against enemies that are midair or half wings. This was part of an idea that I have scrapped, which would just be on Combat Island, where you can have angels and demons, and it would be sort of like Crimson Isle, that you choose one faction and fight the other, and you can then switch and blah blah blah. I scrapped that idea because I couldn't get anywhere with it. So I do not have any ways for these items to be craftable, however, their abilities can still be used. Another item would be Wormhole Blocking Mixture, which is a very weird name, but I didn't want to use the Minitrium, so yeah, this is again based on Witcher 3. This would prevent all struck mobs from teleporting. So bosses that are currently based around teleporting, such as Slayers, Livid, or Shadow Assassin, would instead do high damage when you are too far from them. And the last elixir is Summoner's Drought, which prevents struck enemies from spawning mobs. Again, mobs that are kind of depend on this idea, such as Inferno Demon Lord, Arachne, Magma Cube boss, Ash Fang, Scarf, and Seven Backmaster are immune to this effect. However, others, such as Mage Outlaw or Void Gloom Seraph's Nukebuki fixations, are included in this effect. Another new type of item I propose would be a concoction. A concoction can be crafted from any 3 elixirs. If you use the same elixir multiple times, its effect becomes 50% stronger or 100% stronger depending on how many you can use, but you can use 3 different elixirs as well. Concoctions can be drunk, but unlike elixirs, they cannot be drunk in dungeons because that would be too. An item related to concoction would be enchanted powered redstone lamp, which can turn an elixir or a concoction into a good potion mixing, making it last as long as a good potion would, and can be combined with a good potion as a mixing and then stack with all other existing mixings. However, you cannot put multiple concoctions into the same good potion, because otherwise that would be too OP and kind of ruin the whole point of this update. Alright, there's not much left of the suggestion, so let's just finish it as fast as possible, because I also do not have a lot of time. So yeah, another idea would be Void Kingdom, which would be another combat island after the End Island. Well, after the Crimson Isle, but located somewhere behind the End Island. I proposed that if this island is to be added, that a special item would be released to access the island, but it would be released ahead of time, so that the prices aren't expensive when it comes out. The item would be obtainable using 8 summoning eyes. Multiple people can contribute to that, and for every eye they contribute, they will get 1 Wanderer's Eye. So, similarly like summoning a dragon, you get more bonuses depending on the amount of eyes you contribute. Each Wanderer's Eye would be consumed when you travel to the island, but you can stay on the island as long as you want. However, if you leave, you will need to pay another to join. And within the area, Abiphone's auction house and bazaar cannot be accessed. If the player logs off of SkyBlock and returns again to SkyBlock, they will be sent again to Void Kingdom. This area should have some requirements based on the items that appear in it, which would be Combat 60, Heart of the Mountain 7, and Enderman Slayer 7, or 9, but I think 7 is more realistic. And this island would feature the 5th tier of Enderman Slayer. It would feature stronger versions of dragons, which I unfortunately haven't finished, so I'll just skip it into this video. If you want to see, you can check the Sandbox version of this. And lastly, it will feature some new collections. So, yeah. 5th tier of Enderman Slayer. Enderman Slayer is also getting old, so it wouldn't be unusual for it to get a 5th tier. The name I came up with would be Nihilistic Operation. Nihil being a Latin word for nothing, so same as void, and also sounds good. Added the suffix istic because I didn't think of anything related to gloom that I could be used here, and Operation is, according to one source, a synonym of seraph. So yeah, regarding the stats of this layer, those are a bit concerning. It would have 1 billion health and 30,000 AoE DPS. It would also have higher movement speed than its predecessor, because, you know, why not? Imagine having a very fast Slayer that just deals massive damage. Now, abilities. First ability would be Abyssal Twins. At every multiple of 10% of its max HP, the boss would spawn 3 clones, which move relatively to the position where the player was when the clones spawned, and they would move like the reflections in Mirrorverse. Each of the clones would deal same damage as the boss, but only on contact, and the clones stay there until the real boss is hit with a direct hit. Second ability would be Terran Space Time, which would replace the Broken Heart Radiation. At 75%, 50% and 25% of max health, the boss would become invulnerable for 6 seconds, every 2 seconds of which it would start summoning a laser at player's location, which would then stay there until the boss dies, and whenever the player would walk through it, they would take 40% of their max HP as true damage and make them lose 15 vitality until the end of the boss fight. This can go to negative, which would make player take damage from healing, at which point we are pretty much dead. Another ability replacing the Nukebuki fixation would be Null Colossus, which would spawn every 5 seconds after reaching 33% of max health, and it would be immune to all damage and other effects and deal 20,000 damage per hit, and dealing massive knockback, knocking the player away from the Slayer. While this thing deals less damage than the boss itself, it's not Enderman, so Ender Relic or Final Destination ability would not soften the hit. Colossus would move at the same pace as a regular Iron Golem. However, if the player gets too far, it will get a lot faster. And if the player gets out of reach, it can throw a hook at the player, dealing 50,000 damage and pulling them closer to Colossus, which would make the Colossus punch them away for a total of 70,000 damage. And the last ability would be Black Hole, equivalent of Young Glyph. Instead of throwing a beacon that can after a few seconds instantly kill a player, it would spawn a block that pulls the player in, which would slow them while they are close to it and deal 30,000 damage per second if they are within the 2 blocks of the block, and kill them instantly once they touch it. Multiple of those can exist and they cannot be removed, so they will stay annoying and make the boss harder the longer he is alive. I'm pretty proud of these abilities. What I'm less proud of is that I didn't think of a single item related to the Slayer. And dragons are also very unfinished. I thought that there would be an extra tier of every single dragon, which would have a special ability and be used to obtain upgrades to the dragon armors, which would have itself 3 abilities: tiered ability, set bonus, and a tiered bonus. And there will also be Dragon Empress herself as a boss, which will also have its own armor. However, I really didn't finish most of these abilities. If you want to read them, you can on the Sandbox version of this page. However, I will skip ahead to the collections. I thought there would be 2 collections. One of them would be Voidstone, which would require Breaking Power 10 to mine, which means Gemstone Gauntlet plus Polar Void Book, or Demands Drill. It would reduce speed while in inventory and take quite a long time to mine. When creating items related to this collection, I took inspiration from Hollow Knight because it features Void, so I also made some references, namely the description of this item. Now, to get to the collection itself, it would of course have itself minion. My idea is that its time between actions would be infinite, and its sole purpose would be to get SkyBlock XP and unique minion crafts. Alternatively, it can have time between actions, but it would be very high, like dozens of hours, and every tier would drop a special unique item that would, say, help with the update somewhat. But I'm more fond of the infinite time idea. Second item in the collection would be Rock on Chain, which would be an accessory reducing your speed, magic power. Then Enchanted Voidstone, Shadow Crystal, which is a reference to Deltarune, another indie game that I'm fond of, which is an accessory that does nothing. Fifth item would be Void Star, which would be a crafting material for items. It's rather costly, requiring half a stack of Enchanted Voidstone as well as 1 Nether Star to get 4 of them. And it would be used to craft some weapons. So first such weapon would be Dark Point, which would fire a beam that would pass through enemies and stay there for a while, damaging anything that goes through it. I thought the projectile would be just a bunch of obsidian blocks on invisible armor stands in a row. I intended for this to be able to break breakable walls. Second item would be Root of All Evil, another wand dealing massive damage, somewhat inspired by Firewall wand, except working a lot different. It would create an aura around you, which would pull anything on it down and make it take a lot of damage, immobilizing any mobs as well as players, and attract any projectiles that are shot above it to the ground. Both of these wands have somewhat large soul flow cost as well as cooldown longer than the duration of these abilities. It has, compared to Firewall Wand, it has 33% more damage, 6 times the mana cost, the same ability scaling. However, it cannot be cast infinitely because there's a cooldown between the casts. On the other hand, Firewall Wand has cooldown of 1 second and duration of 5. And last item in the collection would be Voidling Pet, crafted from 1 stack of Void Stars and 1 Omega Enchanted Deck. It would be a legendary combat pet, giving great stats and some abilities which I'll get to straight away. I just need to fix one typo. Okay, so the first ability is called Embrace the Void, taken from Hollow Knight, and what it would do is every 5 seconds you would dodge an enemy attack, and after dodging, your next attack will do double damage. Second ability is Void Transmission, which is triggered by sneaking and jumping, because if it were only sneaking, it would be pretty annoying. What it would do is you would dash 5 blocks forward and ignore any attacks in the way, and perhaps get 1 second of damage immunity afterwards. The reason this pet has the teleport ability is because in Void Kingdom you cannot teleport, as I should have already mentioned. Third ability gives 50% ferocity against all end mobs, which could be an alternative to Ender Dragon Pet. And last ability makes you recover health based on spending soul flow. It can also be buffed, so it will also give some combat stats, but this is just the raw idea. It can be edited. There's also the second item in collection, but I haven't done anything with it. And this is everything noteworthy from this update. We can read more in the suggestion once again. So I'll get to the last part, which is regarding Infestation. Has anyone thought about connecting farming and combat? No? Just me? In pop culture, you sometimes have plants that are somewhat aggressive, and I think something like that could be featured here. While we already have mobs in garden, there could be perhaps a sub-area or another island accessed through the garden where we could perhaps do combat stuff against plants, because why not, right? After quite a long time in SkyBlock, it would be a new type of mob, which is not particularly bad. It would also serve as a combat island after Sealed Brewster Hideout, but before Crimson Isle. However, it would have higher requirement because the requirements for Crimson Isle are and always have been a joke. However, I intend for the mobs featured here to be slightly weaker. Another requirement for this feature would be garden level 10, because otherwise people might feel overwhelmed by all the garden related features like pests, plots, visitors, composter, and all that. It will also feature Catacombs floor 5 completion, because at the beginning of the Livid boss fight, he takes Thorn's souls and consumes it to become stronger, and since Thorn is canonically a shaman, he could have perhaps something to do with plants. Perhaps that once he's dead, the plants would be unleashed and might cause some trouble. Thanks to that, there could also be a second version of this update, which would be harder, more late game, Combat 50 requirement, Garden 15, and Catacombs Master Mode 5 completion. Regarding the plants that might appear here, I didn't get any abilities or special drops, but there could be some ideas like fly traps, angry vines, which could function similar to hell wisps. They can also perhaps have some avatar, which would be player character, but a moving plant. Something that would shoot projectiles, something that would block players from advancing, something that would support other plants, which is, those three are just pretty much inspired by Plants vs Zombies. And yeah, there's many options. You can make cactus plant for all I care. They could have potentially some immunities, which would force players to use perhaps different items. And sort of elemental system can be added so that every type of damage would have some special effects. So for example, ice weapons could be slowing, fire damage would do damage over time and stuff like that, because currently fire damage is already a feature, however it's not working a lot. And there's also a specific plant I came up with, but not a lot. Regarding new things from this update, I got two things. First would be fertilizer, which would be another consumable thing that would give you farming fortune, bind growth, and farming wisdom. And second idea is flower pet, which is definitely inspired by the fact that I played Undertale by the time I worked on this particular part of the suggestion. Flower pet would be similar to rock pet, in which that it would be a physical block that would follow you and act as a support. One of its ability would just shoot a projectile at an attacked enemy, so it wouldn't aggro a neutral enemy. And second ability would be slightly more interesting, and that it would gauge enemies and add their damage to yours, sort of like Soul Eater, except on multiplates, not just the one. There's also very unfinished content, which is just some ideas that can be expanded upon. First of them is Skeleton Merchant, which would be an NPC that would appear on a random island every, let's say, hour, similar to Dark Auction, and it would sell items that could be, for example, event items, such as Diana items, however at a larger price. This could serve both as a money sink and a way to obtain items without having Griffin Pet in this case, and also make players able to obtain items from events that happen more rarely if they are willing to pay more money for them. And last idea of this thing are Slayer Mutants. If you look in the Slayer menu, there's only one slot missing, and while there definitely could be more pages, what if there was at least one Slayer, which instead of being one boss with multiple tiers, would be multiple bosses with one tier that would give you a one-time reward, such as stat bonus, accessory, or a bonus to a tiered accessory. And instead of them having some abilities and make you depend on having the Slayer gear or some gear that is universally good, what if it was about the fight, about the mobs having unique attacks that you would have to fight and use your skill as a player, not SkyBlock skills, to beat them. I came up with a few specific ideas, so let's look at them. First of them would be Shadow, which I originally thought would just take your stats and fight with them, but they would have to be buffed because, you know, most players deal enough damage to one-shot themselves, so it would not be ideal. So instead, it could be that you would have specific stats, and you would have to fight a mob that would have same abilities as you. Perhaps you could have a mob that would be able to teleport around with a weapon, heal, cast some, I don't know, power-ups and so on. Second of them would be Taskmaster, which, if you want to beat him, you would be required to follow some tasks, similar to how most of the Riftstalker Bloodfiend is just avoiding damage. Riftstalker Bloodfiend is still vulnerable and you still have to stab him, so instead you could have maybe a boss that would be around about surviving, let's say, 5 minutes of just doing tasks that if you fail to do them would instantly kill you, or something like that. And last would just get stronger with how many kills you have, but that's just a boring idea. So, as I already said, it could have one-time rewards, which could be just combat wisdom, increase rate of blood gut crest, or introduce another accessory. This will be it for the suggestion. So let's get to special thanks. I would like to thank user RapidWho on forums for suggesting a confirmation period instead of having players delete their own profile permanently when I originally posted that suggestion. I would also like to thank user/GR4TTE on Reddit for constructive criticism regarding major minor updates back when I uploaded it in 2022 or 21, not sure right now, and especially the mythological event part, because those ideas were very useful. Another forum user I would like to give my thanks to would be _the_Endragon for suggesting the name of the 5th year of Spider Slayer, the Tantra Godfather. And up next, I would like to thank Palice for helping me create Medusa, Sphinx, Scent Elemental, Bramass, Mayor, and Voidlink Pet, as well as proposing several suggestions regarding the Bingo event. Up next, I would like to thank ATAP for suggesting that Egyptian mythological creatures should drop Lapis. Use Catsper Snow for suggesting Serpapart as a mythological creature, the True Shaman for the ability of Scorpion's Stink, the Wiki staff members, the True Shaman, Upster G, Alexia, and Johnny the Agent for teaching me how to use various templates here on Hypixel SkyBlock Wikipedia, which helped me create this massive page. Up next, I would like to thank collectively to Palice, ATAP Catsper Snow, and Axiru for a variety of feedbacks regarding this suggestion via Discord, namely the sprites of items, which they have chosen based on some housing items that I proposed. And lastly, I would like to thank you for reading this. I wish you all a happy new year, quite late, whenever it is you are reading/listening to this. Let's get to some statistics of this post. I used quite a lot of images in that suggestion, a total of 45. Most of them were taken from housing, or they were screenshots I made, or something else I made. The only exception to that would be the Nerd Pet Sprite, which was taken from NameMC and is a negative of one of the most popular skins. Regarding the size of this thing, for unknown reason, it did not just let me pick the whole thing for me to copy paste into Word, and when I do Ctrl A, it copies some things on the side, so I had to go manually by every chapter and paste it into Word. And it's 81,000 characters, 13,000 words, and that's not counting the images. So that is a lot, and I still have to write the statistics into the thing, so this is not including that. That's why I'm rounding down, so because otherwise it wouldn't really matter anyway. And if you look what the wiki itself thinks about the size of this thing, it's 160,222 bytes. And if I take the source code of this thing and I copy paste it into Word, it has 20,000 words, 3,000 unique words, and 157,000 characters, making it the largest project I've ever done. It literally takes 3 hours to speak. That's, why I didn't read everything. But yeah, I guess this is everything. I thank you all so much for watching. Once again, Happy New Year, and I have to edit this. 2020 paragraphs, that's a lot of paragraphs.